My name is Hans Reiter. I'm a telecommunications engineer by profession, by education. I was born in Austria and raised in Austria, and I have been working for many years in Austria, after which I moved to Sweden, and then later, via several steps, I ended up in Portugal, which is what I'm here now, where we are recording this video in this fantastic place. If we talk about work and life experience, what does a young engineer like me think when he ends university? He will of course make a career, and hopefully a great career. Now, the questions that arise here is, you find your first job, you get a nice initial salary, and what are you going to do then? Are you going to stick with your employer that after all he made or they made a bet on you? Or are you going to change employers with a certain frequency in order to move up the ladder, basically the salary ladder, because this is what you're interested in? And there is a number of different things that we can contemplate when we discuss this. Number one, job hopping, as we call it, is something that is quite popular with certain people. And the idea is that if you show that you have experience to have worked with many different companies, this is going to be an added value, as your future human resources bosses may appreciate that. Now, there is a number of advantages that we get as an employee, as a collaborator, when we work in a multinational company. I would put in the first place that in a multinational company, we are on the one hand obliged, but on the other hand, we have the luxury of being able to work within a setup that is based on well-established and tried and tested processes. So, in many things, we don't have to invent anything, we just have to perform. You may say, okay, but that's not very funny. But on the other hand, don't even think twice that your life in a multinational company will be a repetitive life. There is no way that in a multinational company survival is possible if you stick to the status quo. So repetitiveness is not going to be an issue. All of us, we learn something in school, we start to learn a profession, and then we start to work. But the question here is, are we going to continue to do the same thing for 40 years, which is probably the average length of our respective careers? I don't think so. And I think it would make life extremely boring for most of us. So, in order to have a life that is a little bit more diverse, a little bit more challenging, and also in order to be able to find the right setting for what we are, how we work, what we would like to achieve in life, etc., I think it's absolutely important to widen our horizons. And I can only give you my example. I started telecommunications, but I'm a musician at the same time. I actually had some periods in my life where I was not quite sure whether I should study music or whether I should focus on telecoms in order to be able to earn some money, because at that time being a musician was considered to be a profession that did not provide any bread on the table. But that's only one part. I think to have a part of you that is totally focused on your profession and on your skills and technical skills and evolution, there has to be another part that is a little bit more playful, that is looking at other things that you might be doing or might not be doing. There's so many things that are of huge interest in life that I think it's really a pity if we just stick to one topic in our lives. So whatever you do, don't believe everything that people tell you. at least not at first sight, because we are very often confronted with fantastic stories about this gentleman that had a lot of success with what he did, or the other one that earned a lot of money and has been terribly successful, and doing this and doing that and moving up your career path and so on and so forth. My father was always with some reluctance with respect to that, and said, okay, why don't you calm down? Why don't you calm down? Try to understand and think for yourself. And I think it was one of the best advices that he ever gave to me, because when it comes to your career, you can only build it. It's not something that happens just overnight. Or if it happens overnight, it can go away as fast as it came. And I think this is something that we need to understand. I was very often accused of being too curious, that I always wanted to know everything, that I was pestering people, asking them questions all the time. And it's true, of course, sometimes you're overstepping the limits, and you may be appearing to be too curious. But I continue to consider curiosity as a value, because if you're not curious, you're never going to learn anything. Alright? Curiosity, I need to understand, for instance, why is it that the sea changes color? Is it the sea that changes color, or who changes color? Is somebody there that turns a switch to change the color of the sea? No. There is a logic behind it, and if we try to understand the logic, we are a little bit richer. So, curiosity may have killed a cat here or there, but at the end of the day, curiosity will always have enriched your lives. It will have brought humanity a step forward, because without curiosity, all of the things that are around us here, that are very comfortable, that have enriched our lives dramatically, would not be available. So let's say curiosity is actually something very, very valuable. How do we actually measure success? Again, there is the engineer in me that makes this question. And the first thing I should say, why the hell do we have to measure success? Because if we want to measure success, we have to develop a yardstick, a way to evaluate success according to certain criteria. But the problem starts exactly there. What is the criterion? What are the criteria that we apply to measuring success? Is it the amount of money that I earn? Is it the amount of people that I have under my wings? Is it whether or not I'm a CEO or a president of a large multinational company? Are we all the time totally in control of the success that we are managing to have? And my answer is very simply no, we are not in control. I think success is something very futile, but we can say if we have success, we will definitely be happy, we'll be satisfied with ourselves. Success means that everybody respects us, and as such, having success has a certain value. I learned that multiculturalism is actually a huge value and a huge benefit. If we study our own history, we heard in one of the other depositions, gentlemen talking about the Persian Wars and how Persia disintegrated basically because, number one, they grew too fast. Number two, they were not able to maintain the basic strength of their culture together. And interestingly enough, when I went to high school, the Greek-Persian Wars and all this was a very big topic, because it's really almost an ex libris to understand what happened there and why it happened. And they were actually quite good in conquering other countries, other peoples, but they did not manage to preserve the integrity of that huge empire that they built. And it's always very simple to get to that point, and then all of a sudden one mistake happens after the other, and the credibility of those that conquered one country, for instance, is getting a dent. And from the moment that you're having a dent in your armor, people start to know that you are vulnerable. And this is when things start to disintegrate. Truth is always relative. And if you look at different cultures, this is when you really will understand that truth, maybe truth okay for you, but it may not be okay for your partner, and it's maybe coming from Egypt to say something, or from Israel, or from India. So truth is relative. Let's just leave it there. There are even types of barometers to measure the atmosphere or the attitude towards mergers and acquisition. Is the curve ticking upwards or is it going downwards, etc.? And it's supposed to be an indicator for the health of the economy. And I'm not going to talk about this part because I'm not an economist. I understand some of it, but I think there are people better placed to talk about the economic aspect of mergers and acquisition. What I can say, though, is that I have assisted in quite a few decades of professional life that during acquisitions, more value was destroyed than was created. And we should understand why this is so. And we are going to come back to the previous topic, which was culture in a way. And I think when companies acquire other companies, what they often forget is that there has to be not only a complementarity in portfolio or market or whatever, but there also has to be a complementarity in cultures. And I have been acquired, I've gone through that part of being acquired, not me personally because I was just an employee, but I studied the phase and the outcome of being acquired from the inside. And I was actually quite vocal at the time, which led to the point that the acquirer at some point in time invited me to come to the headquarters and talk about my personal experience and my personal view of the acquisition process. And frankly speaking, I only had rather critical observations to make. The way you describe something can be positive, can be negative, can be confusing, can be all kinds of things, and it all depends on your choice of words. And I think we also understand that, so we have just explained that every word has consequences, but every silence has consequences as well. And so sometimes it's better not to say anything, just leave it there, and let the other side take the conclusions. Let the other side sense the reverberations, the echo of what was said, and try to take conclusions there. What if the boss actually bullies you? How can you handle that? The problem that you have is that your boss can decide about your future career. He can just put you out of the business. If you say something that the boss doesn't like, bad luck for you. You'll be out sooner than later. I had a colleague once that was very close to the majority owner of the company I was working with. At one point in time, he was the head of the R&D area. I was a young engineer, or not so young anymore, and I had opinions. And sometimes I challenged his opinions. And then he said, okay, if you continue like that, I'm going to make sure that you will leave the company rather sooner than later. And I said, okay, sir, note taken, but I'm not afraid. Later on, many years later, he was the one that left first, or that had to leave first and not me. If your attitude transmits competence, decisiveness, and you're not accepting a no as an answer, in 40-80% of the cases, there will not be a no as an answer. For me, this was one of the biggest learnings ever, because if you demonstrate decisiveness, dedication, resolve, this is a message that I would like to leave everybody that is planning to have a career, because whatever I said before, all probably true, but you have to be able to carry the message convincingly and with resolve, and you will be believed. if you are not carrying the message with resolve, you will not be the beast. I'm very often taking reacts beyond when I'm joking. I'm also joking about myself, trying not to take myself too seriously. But when it's important, make totally sure that people understand what I say. Now that I will not take no as an answer. This is also important when you run a team or I don't know how many people, because this is where you cannot allow yourself to display weakness. Of course, you should have your homework done.
Thank you very much.